Trump administration continues its efforts to bring peace to the Middle East as a date is set to move the capital of Israel to Jerusalem. One America's Christopher Carter has more on the role the United Nations is playing.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us
Thank you very much, Chris.
I wanted to talk to you first about Lebanon. We know that there are these rocket factories in Lebanon. What do we know about these?
Unfortunately, the Iranians are using Lebanon as a depot for their arms. They're building factories for sophisticated rockets and missiles, and we cannot allow it. We know that those rockets will be used against our citizens, against our civilians. That's why we said it very clearly. We will not allow the Iranians to build those factories in our backyard.
Israeli Defense Forces have recently stated Iran has resumed building weapons factories in Lebanon. Is this something that has been going on, or has it been escalating?
We have seen in the last few months that the Iranians are trying to take over Syria and Lebanon. They want to control the region. They want to bring their influence, and they're putting a lot of funds into the region, Chris. Millions of dollars to purchase land, to build factories. They're paying militias. They're trying to make sure that they control Syria the same way they control Lebanon. For us, it's a major issue because we know what we are facing with Hezbollah today in our northern front. We don't want to face the same threat coming from our other front with Syria. That's exactly what the Iranians want to do. They want to create another front with Israel from Syria.
Recently, we just heard that Fox News is reporting about these aerial images about a new base for these rocket attacks outside of Damascus. What do you know about that?
I will not go into specifics, but we know that the Iranians are building bases and factories in Syria. We know that they are investing in Syria, and we say it very clearly. We will not sit idly by if the Iranians will continue to take over Syria and to build those armed depots, weapons. We saw the Iranian drone, who tried to invade Israel a few weeks ago. We cannot allow it. The US will not allow an Iranian drone flying over New York City, and the Europeans will not allow an Iranian drone flying over Paris or Munich. So I think we have to be very clear about it. We will protect our citizens, and I will advise anyone, including the Iranians, not to try the termination of the Israelis.
Let's move back to Lebanon just for a minute. The situation is very serious there. Are we close to another Lebanese-Israeli war?
We hope not. You know, we know that the Lebanese people are suffering from what's happening in Lebanon. Hezbollah took over entire regions in Lebanon. Look what's happening today in southern Lebanon. Today you have hundreds of thousands of rockets and missiles in southern Lebanon. So those forces, militias that took over southern Lebanon are a threat not only to Israel, but also a threat for the population in Lebanon. Because you can imagine what will happen if they will start to send rockets and missiles into Israel. We will have to retaliate, we will have to defend our people, and the Israelis will suffer, and the Lebanese will suffer from that. That's why we call the UN and the international community to act today, to do something about the presence of Hezbollah next to our border, to do something about the rockets, the missiles, the factories, and not to wait to the next conflict.
And back to Syria. So President Trump's policy in Syria seems to be a little bit different from what we've heard from some American leadership, like Senator Lindsey Graham. General Joseph Votel, head of U.S. Central Command, stated that countering Iran is not one of the missions in Syria. The U.S. seems to be fully committed to fighting ISIS, but doesn't want to be involved in a bigger, more complex conflict. Do you agree with the policy of President Trump?
Well, I will not interfere in the American policy. I can tell you about our policy. We know that ISIS has been defeated already in Syria. So today when you see the Iranians pouring funds and personnel into Syria, you ask yourself why? Why Chris are putting so much energy into Syria today after ISIS is being defeated? Because they want to take over. And I think we cannot allow the Iranians to take over. I think the US and the international community should not allow the Iranians to take over, because today they pose a threat on Israel. The next day it will be a threat on Europe and the US. That's exactly what happened with ISIS. They started with threatening Israel, then they moved to the entire world. So I think all the nations should come together and try to stop Iran from taking over Syria and Lebanon.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you very much. Thank
Pleasure.
you.
We can use your help. Call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call today.